Welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. This is a podcast for male survivors of sexual abuse and assault, whether as a child or as an adult. Know that you are not alone and the abuse was not your fault. My name is Mike Chapman. I'm a certified recovery life coach and also a survivor. Let's find hope and healing together. And welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. I'm your host, Mike Chapman. And with me today is Ken Freire, who is a coach, entrepreneur, and I'll talk more about his intro in a moment. And if you would like to join us live, you can learn more about how to do so at polarlifeconsulting.com/live. And we do have people here in the audience live. I want to remind them that we want to honor anonymity, so we will not say your name unless you manually type it in with your question or comment. And with that, let me introduce Ken. Ken is a coach, entrepreneur, and host of the Shameless, and less is in parentheses, podcast, where he helps Christian men overcome shame and addiction by pointing them back to Christ and their God-given purpose. After surviving childhood abuse and battling addiction, Ken now equips others to kill shame, stand strong, and be on mission. He also leads the Solo Scaled, where he helps coaches scale their business without burnout or headcount. So with that, we will start the episode like we do most episodes with 4 questions. Now it's time for 4 questions, that part of the podcast when we get to know our guest a bit better by asking a few questions. Let's go. So, Ken, what is your favorite food memory?
One of my favorite food memories is eating at restaurants with my dad. He was a big foodie, so he would take me, just sneak me away and would take me to restaurants. But no matter what type of restaurant he would take me to, I still loved eating pizza. I was born and raised in New York City, so I'm die-hard pizza fan.
So yeah, there's good pizza there.
100%.
Absolutely, yes. I think another previous guest mentioned New York pizza. Yes, had a favorite for sure. So yes, absolutely. So no matter what kind of restaurant he took you to, you always wanted the pizza?
Yeah, always. No, and it was 5-star restaurant, just really good restaurants that he would save up for and different things. And he's like, "Oh, you're gonna love this." And I'm like, "Can we just go to the pizza shop right down the street? It's my favorite pizza."
So you wouldn't even try the food, or unless there was pizza on the menu, but probably It's no, it's gonna be too fancy. And
yeah, I'm it's okay, it's fine,
Yeah,
but I do remember. Yeah, but I do remember a lot of great memories with my dad going out to eat with him.
Excellent. So what's your favorite toppings? Do you just like cheese pizza, or when you were a kid, or the pepperoni, or there's lots of choices out there?
Yeah, it's evolved, man. So right now, when I was a little kid, it was just a cheese pizza. Then it was pepperoni. Then it was they had these upside down pizzas or Sicilians in New York City. And I know a lot of people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I am a huge Hawaiian pizza fan now.
Hawaiian pizza, yes.
Yeah. So pineapple and Canadian bacon.
I grew up on the West Coast, and that was huge. That was the most popular, was Hawaiian pizza, even though I think they came up with it in Canada, I think.
Yeah.
That's the birth of Hawaiian pizza. And,
is it really? Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah, because that's Canadian bacon. Yeah, it was a Canadian thing. And hey, let's throw pineapple on it and call it Hawaiian, and then just spread. But it's definitely a West Coast thing. And yeah, very, very popular. But yes, pineapple on pizza. Anchovies. Have you ever had anchovies on pizza?
No, man. I cannot stand anchovies. So I'm sorry if that's you.
I had a friend of mine once convinced me to get anchovies, and however they did it, it wasn't like whole chunks. I think it was like
little slices.
Yeah, and it just added this whole umami sensation to it, and it just amped up the flavors of the whole pizza, and it was so good. But I've had other times I've had anchovies, and it's they put the whole fish on there, and it's gross. So yeah,
I can't do it.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Man, my favorite Christmas memory is when it was the first Christmas when my 2 oldest ones were just old enough. I think they were maybe 5 and 3. And we went to one of those kind of Christmas parades, not parades, but a light show. There we go.
Right,
It's
right.
Elisha.
Yep.
And we were in our car and just driving around, and just like that magical moment for little kids where they loved
Hmm.
it. Like they were sitting on our laps and we were blasting the music. And it was just so much fun to see. And they're like, let's do it again. And we like just keep going around and just seeing them get so excited. It's now a tradition. I have 4 kids now, and it's definitely a tradition where we go see lights, and just seeing them get excited for that brings some fond memories for me.
Absolutely. That was a fond memory for me. Growing up in Portland, there's something called Peacock Lane, which is one of those Christmas light streets where everyone decorates. And they do it for
Yeah.
like generations. And there's that one street in Portland, Oregon that, yeah, we got to go see Peacock Lane. And now there's several. It's usually like farm, agritainment kind of venues around here that do lights. And we've got several that we used to take the kids to all the time, but now they're like adults and don't
Wow.
have their own kids. Eventually, something to look forward to when grandchildren are a thing, but they're not a thing yet.
Yeah. Soon enough.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So, what is your favorite church or house of worship memory?
Man, I just remember this one time. I was probably around like early 20s, where I was just at church, and I don't even remember what the sermon was about, but I remember God was just working in my heart. And this was actually part of my healing story, where I just felt like, God, I want to surrender my life to you. I want to be utilized by you as much as possible. Like, I'm just here to serve you. And I remember just going up and asking for prayer for some people. And the lady just gave me a huge word of encouragement. She had no idea who I was, but she's just like, Ken, I see greatness in you. God wants to do something in your life. And I just remember being like, oh, wow. It was very specific what she shared with me. And I
Right.
was like, that's really impressive. And then I was like sobbing. I went back to my chair. And then like 3 other people came to me and started sharing similar stories, similar things to me that she said. And none of
Wow.
them knew me, but they were just like, I remember a close friend of mine was watching the whole scene, and she was like, Ken, I felt like there was just a special anointing that just got dropped on you during this season, where she was like, I think God just wants to use you in a very powerful way. And
Hmm.
lo and behold, she was right. Like God started to use me a lot with helping men overcome sexual addiction because I was starting to be free from it. And I was just sharing my
Right.
story with people.
Wow. And that's one of the themes of the podcast. If you listen to the podcast, you know I say it almost every episode, power of story. That just telling your story can inspire so many other people to grow and change, and especially abuse survivors and male abuse survivors, particularly because we often feel so alone and we're the only person in the world that this has ever happened to. And that's obviously not the case. So, absolutely. What is your favorite scripture or any inspirational quote that has helped you on your spiritual journey? And what about it speaks to you?
Yeah, so I would say Joshua 1:9. It's, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be discouraged. Do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And again, this is going to go into my story a lot, but for a lot of male abuse survivors, one of the things that I believe they struggle with, and I know I struggled with a lot, was this complete feeling of loneliness. And you
Mm,
just feel like even if you're an extrovert like me, I could be in front of a crowd, I could engage a crowd, I could woo them, and I still felt very much like no one really knows who I am and I'm not seen. And just remember when God laid that in my heart, it was such a phenomenal moment for me. It was a very impactful moment where I felt like, okay, if God is for me, who can be against me? And that really started my
right.
Christian journey. I would say that was like a very pivotal moment for me.
Absolutely. That's great. Now, Ken, from here, would love to hear more about your story. I know you are a survivor. So, however much you want to share about that experience. And then from there, I would love to hear more about your healing journey, what things you've tried that have helped you on your healing journey, and what things you've tried that have not helped or hurt. I know sometimes you try things, it's like, nope, that didn't help at all. I'm going to try something else. So let me know if you've hit any of those roadblocks as well. And then would love to hear more about what you're doing today with all of the things you're involved with. It sounds like you've got a lot that you're doing to help others. So I'd love to hear more about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my story, and let me just back up before I address it, right? I know people
Hmm.
are live on the call right now. And then for people who might listen to this and you're listening to Mike's podcast, you're used to hearing abuse stories, right? And sometimes they can be a little triggering. So even as I share things. I want you to have the complete freedom to pause this or leave if you have to, go spend some time with the Lord, right? And at the same time, know that there's going to be some immense healing, hopefully some truths that I share at the end of this that can bring about some freedom, especially for my story. Like you said, the power of story is so important. So I share these details, not so that I could be like, woe is me, but it's because the other thing I know is the enemy loves to mess with you in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy loves to say, oh, you know what? I know that you struggled with this, but if someone else knew that you struggled with this or this thing happened to you, they'll never accept you.
Right.
And I can tell you, I've been around the block now long enough. Things have happened to me and things that I've done that it's like nothing shocks me anymore. Right. So like,
Right.
I just say all that for all of you who are listening. If it triggers you, man, like I get it. Right. Like keep pressing through in the conversation or take a pause, come back to it. And at the same time, know that like Mike and I are here to accept you. So I just wanted to put that as a preamble before I share my story, because I know sometimes it can affect men as we go into it. So my story, like I mentioned earlier, I was born in New York City, and I lived in a place in New York City where a lot of people call the ghetto, right? And it was my family, some of my cousins' family. Like we had this 3-story building that we just all lived in.
Where were you in?
I was in Queens at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So we all lived there. I felt like it was like a Hispanic Rugrats. And for some of you who don't know this or just listening to the podcast, I am brown. My parents are from Ecuador, right? Like, so when I say like, if it was all Spanish little kids just running around, like 15 kids just running around.
Right.
Those were sadly the only few memories I remember, because a lot of it was plagued by abuse. Around the ages of 3 to 5, I started to be abused. There was starting to be some molestation. There was starting to be some experimentation, different things that happened to me. And the same individual that did this made me do it to other individuals around. So it started to scar my view of sexuality. I didn't understand what I was doing. And the biggest manipulation and lie that I listened to was that this stuff is okay. Even though in my conscience, in my heart, I felt like this was wrong. This felt weird. I don't know how to explain this. They kept pressing into me saying, no, just keep doing this. This is fine. This individual also started to introduce me to pornography when I was 5.
Wow.
And you're at the age that you remember this, and maybe some of the people who are listening to podcasts remember this, like Saturday morning cartoons, right? Where it was just like the 4 hours straight, you're watching it. You're like, you're stuck. You're in it, right?
Right.
For me, that's how I was watching pornography. I was just so addicted to it. I was watching it hours and hours a day.
Wow.
And then especially as I got older and, Napster, LimeWire, all these things where you're able to start downloading different things. Oh my gosh. It was like any free time I had, I was addicted to it. I was enamored by it. So let me go back a little bit. When I started to realize the abuse was happening, I didn't know how to communicate it. I didn't know how to express it.
Right.
And
you didn't have the language for it.
I didn't have the language.
Age. Absolutely.
The only language I had was I knew it was wrong because I was going to church, and unfortunately we were going to like those hellfire and brimstone churches where like if you're not wearing a 3-piece suit, you're going to go to hell kind of deal. It was very legalistic, very awful. So I was going there, but then I had this individual over here who was saying to me, no, this is okay. Let's keep doing this. And I was like very conflicted. Thankfully, we moved from that area. We moved to a different area, and then everything kind of subsided, right? Until probably at the age of 12, where all of a sudden all these repressed memories started to kick back in. And I didn't remember, from like 7 to 12, I just was kind of living life. I didn't remember these things. But man, did it come back like a fierce vengeance. I mean, I was having night terrors. I kept reliving certain dreams. I felt in some ways very spiritually demonic stuff happening to me that I was like, what the heck is going on? And it was right around 12 when I started to realize like, oh my gosh, these dreams I'm having are not made up. This happened to me. Like I acknowledged that this happened. And then I got really angry at God. I mean, I was just like, the age-old question of theodicy kicked in as a 12-year-old boy. I was like, God, why would you allow this to me? I'm a little kid. I didn't know what was going on. And all I wanted to do really was just try to serve you. I was trying to go to church, right? I'm like sitting in the front pew trying to serve you. And what I get was abuse. Like, how is that fair? And that led me to a path of just complete debauchery. I pretty much
Yeah.
just like flipped God the finger, and I said, you know what? If this is what I get for trying to serve you, I might as well just go do whatever I want.
Right.
And I
So,
started
so that
manipulating women.
it sounds like some of the abuse came out of the church. So whether it's people in the church who did that to you, or
Great question. It wasn't people in the church that did it to me. I think I personally just correlated my abuse with I thought God would protect me because I had this view that if I served God and I did the things he told me to do, he's always going to protect me. He's always going to guide
right,
me. Nothing bad's going to happen to me. In some ways, like a prosperity gospel kind of thing of just like, oh,
right,
everything good is going to happen.
right,
So I equated those things happening to me as, well, God, you let this happen to me. So I put the blame on him and not really the blame on humans. You know,
right,
we're sinful. We do wrong things and people
right,
did wrong things to us, and people who are listening to this,
hmm,
you've been wronged. And that
right,
is deplorable to God. But that's what ended up happening for me.
right. Okay.
Yeah, I started living debauchery, and then probably around the age of 16, I was like living in such a horrible place. I didn't know what to do. I was manipulating women. I was messing around. I was sexually active. I was still addicted to porn, and I was really hopeless. I started to contemplate suicide. And because of all the pain, I was just so angry. I felt hopeless in this season of life. So what I ended up doing, and this goes to one of your questions, like, did you try something? I actually ended up going to a Christian counselor at a church and I was just like, yeah, exactly that. If
Yeah.
you like,
If you're on the audio portion, I just kind of did this little sideways head nod. It's like, yeah, those are really good. Yeah, I've
yeah,
had my own experiences with well-meaning Christian counseling people who are way out of their depth and try to do their best to help people, and often with very questionable results. And often they will tell you horrible advice, well-meaning but horrible advice.
yeah,
And
and
that, yeah, sounds
and
like
here's a
that's what you experienced for sure.
oh yeah, it was one of those moments where I was like, I was so conflicted and disturbed and
Mm,
confused because this person has their PhD, this person is licensed, like, you know, sometimes the people who have all these licensures, it doesn't mean squat. It doesn't mean that
right.
they actually know how to take care of people.
It's a piece of paper. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a piece of paper. So I remember the first time I ever shared to anyone about my abuse, about all the things I've done, I was like, man, I'm probably going to go to jail sharing all this stuff. I didn't know. Like, I was just like so confused. I didn't
Right.
know what to do. And for all of you who are listening, you know this feeling, right? Where you're like, I'm so scared to share my story. You got like those butterflies in your stomach.
Right.
You're just like afraid. That's where I was at.
Hmm.
And man, when I shared my story, it was one of those things where I remember putting my head down and just being so like, I don't even want to look at this person. I'm so ashamed. I don't know what they're going to say. A few moments passed by. And I remember till this day what that counselor said. And this is really important because like it
Right.
like these words can sometimes hurt so much, right?
Hmm.
Well meaning, but they could hurt so much. I remember the counselor, he's like, Ken, I have a solution for you. I think I know what the problem was. And I was like, for anyone who's been there and felt hopeless and just complete destroyed, angry, like frustrated, and like they want to like burn the whole world down.
Right.
When someone's like, I know what happened. Like I was like, I'm all ears. I'm listening. I'm ready. I'm like, let's go. Give me the solution and to heal my heart.
Right.
He said, Ken, the reason that this happened was because you and those individuals were just bored and you guys were experimenting. And that's it. And I'm like, the same, that exact phase, I was just like, I
Yeah.
was like, dude,
Now, for clarification's sake, what was the age difference between you at what, 5,
I was
and the
5,
the person, your perpetrator at that time?
13.
They were 13. Okay. So they were a teenager. Okay. A young teenager doing it to you. And when it's child on child, oftentimes it's that older child who was experiencing abuse themselves, and they don't necessarily know that it's wrong to do it with somebody else, but someone did it to them. It's like, oh, well, this kind of felt good. And they groomed them into thinking this is a good thing. So, hey, I'm going to help someone else. And yeah, so he perpetrated onto you, not necessarily understanding how devastating and scarring it would be towards you, just like he probably didn't understand at the time how scarring his own experience was. And
Yeah.
so it is a very normal for children to act out with other children once they've experienced this.
Yes.
So
And the hard
and
part
then
was,
and then I just need a moment to like cringe at what that guy said to you. It's like, okay,
yeah.
okay.
And,
Thank
and
you
here,
for
here's
giving
why.
me a cringe moment. Oh,
No, no.
yeah.
And here's why I think this cringe moment is really important for everybody to understand, and especially if you're helping people, right?
Right.
Is that could he have told me later on after proper counseling at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
and like help me logically understand exactly what you were just saying? Like, well, hey, children on children, like there's a cycle of abuse going on here,
Right.
and it's devastating, it's hurtful, it's so harmful. But like at the same time, that wasn't the right timing. And his
Right.
words were not the right words to use,
Right.
you know? But I just remember thinking, God, you brought this person into my life, and I thought that they were safe because they're in the church. I've tried everything in the church, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done with you, God. I'm done with the church. And that night, I was going to end my life.
Wow.
So, like, I was just so fed up. So, I ended up actually, I had a plan. I was going to commit suicide. I had a knife under my pillow, and I was getting ready to slit my throat. Like, no joke. I had the blade on my throat, and I'm like, here we go, God. Like, just so, like, you guys know that moment where you're just so angry and hopeless, and you're just like, God, why me? Like, what have I done? Like, I've tried to serve you. I've tried all this. I've tried like the world, and nothing works. And I just like, if I could just yell out a big F word, right? Like that's how I felt. I was just like, gosh. And right when I was gonna end my life, like I just like, committed to do it. I felt like God just broke into my room, dude. It was the craziest thing. Where it was the first time I ever felt like I heard God speak audibly to me. And sometimes I say that, and people are like, "Whoa, did God actually speak to you?" It was a very supernatural moment. That's all I can know. But I said it earlier. What God spoke to me was Joshua 1:9. Like, have I not commanded you? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, but be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And here's the crazy part. I did not memorize that verse. I did not know that was in the Bible. I was not a very studious person of scripture.
Wow.
So like, I'm like, oh my gosh, God spoke to me. It's years later that all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, that was in the Bible. And I like, it was this flat, like this insightful, illuminating moment when I'm like, God spoke to me this. Like, it wasn't something different. It was like in the word. But that was the moment, man, where there was a lot, like my healing journey began.
Yeah, we have comments. First from Steve, and I'm going to pop that on the screen. Ken, thank you for your kindness and vulnerability and sharing your story. Loneliness is a key trigger for me. And then he also continues with, so often those counselors are not trauma informed, and they probably don't specialize in sex related issues. Instead, they gave us a rubber band and a list of Bible verses probably around the wrist, and it's like you flick it, and so don't do
I've
that.
had that before.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Steve. Yeah. So frustrating. So your first disclosure, and that's one of our themes that we talk about is disclosure, was to this counselor. Were you able to disclose to any other family members after that time? And how did that go? Or are you getting there in your story?
Yeah. So that's where my story, like, I didn't disclose anything to anyone after that. I was like, if I share my story and this is what happens, and this is the professional,
right,
I'm screwed. That's how I felt. I was like, I'm screwed. I'm never sharing that. I was like, God, you and I are going to take this to the grave. You spoke to me audibly, but now I need, like, let's take this one step at a time. For those of you who are listening and have never heard of me, I'm a very intellectual type of person, very logical. I need to kind of see the path. And I said, God, we're going to take our journey together, our relationship real slow. I have a lot of questions I still need you to answer. Well, fast forward at the age of 19, I had some health issues, and I won't go into that story. That's a totally different story for a different day. But I almost died. I had a tumor in my neck. It was like pretty intense. God miraculously healed. Like, I found out what the problem was. But in the midst of that, I had like a gospel moment where I just said, Lord, I surrender my life to you. I genuinely just give my all to you. Like, if I have 2 weeks left to live or 2 years, whatever it is, I'm going to give it to you. And then in that same season, I felt like God was telling me, hey, you live in New York City, go from New York City and travel to the middle of nowhere, Texas, and start a leadership discipleship program there. And I was like, I've never moved away from New York City, born and raised there my whole life.
Yeah.
I've never seen the place, but I heard about it. I saw like the promotions about it, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. So I moved.
Wow.
I said, God, if you want me to do this, I'm gonna do it. And in that journey, I was getting healed from the sicknesses I had and stuff like that. I'm gonna fast forward in the conversation a little bit to get to the part that's really important. 8 months into the discipleship training, man, God was doing a miraculous work in my life. I mean, a lot of transformation, a lot of healing. But then one day, I remember reading my Bible and praying, and I was just like asking the Lord, like, Lord, what is it that you want me to do next? And he said, hey, Ken, and this is not exactly what he said, but like what I sensed, right? It was like, hey, Ken, you know, there's this Christian counselor at the discipleship program. I want you to go talk to him. That's the sense that I felt. And I was like, I remember praying to God. I'm like, God, you are smoking crack. Like I was like, do you remember the last time I talked to a Christian counselor? What happened? Like, there's no way I'm doing that.
Right.
So, and man, I don't know if you guys have ever had this thing where like you are like in spiritual high and then all of a sudden like in the valley, God doesn't talk to you, like you're not getting anything.
Right.
Man, I felt like I just hit a brick wall, and I knew why. It's because he asked me to go do something. I didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a Nineveh moment.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And so then what I did, finally, I was like, okay, God said to go see him. I don't need to go tell him anything. So I literally went to this counselor. Like, I'm playing games now. Like, I'm trying to play games with God.
It's
Like, I went in the first time to go see the counselor. I kid you not. He asked me, like, hey, what do you want to talk about today? And I'm like, oh my gosh, all these counselors have the same script. They're using the same stuff. That's what the last counselor told me. I turned into a brick wall, man. Like, nothing came out of my mouth. I literally sat there and just stared at him for 45 minutes. I don't know if you've ever stared at someone for 45 minutes. A minute is awkward as heck. Right. 45, you're like, this is weird, right? And I was like, God just told me to come see him. God did not tell me to talk to him. I felt like God did not tell me to share my story. I just need to go see him. I've done my job. And then I left. And then I'm like, God, I did it. I'm good. And he's like, no. You know what you need to do. And I'm like, I'm not doing that, man. I did that for 5 times. I did that 5 times to this counselor.
You showed up and just stood there and stared. Wow.
Just stared. I was like,
did he let you coming back? Did he like ask any follow-up questions, or he just let you have space?
He just let me have space, man. He just let me he's like, hey man, our time is almost up. Is there anything you need to say? I'm like, nope. And I just left.
Well,
and then like, I think it was the 5th time, I did that to him. It was probably near the last 10 minutes of the session. He was kind of wrapping up and he was like, hey, is there anything you want to talk about? And I don't know what happened, but I was just so mad. And I unleashed on him the last 19 years of anger and frustration in my heart, and then about Christian counselors and how I saw them and how bad they are and how ruthless. Like, I mean, I just unloaded. And as I was unloading on him about my anger towards his, profession, all these other things that I've struggled with started to come out. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, Ken, shut your mouth. You know, the last time you told someone this stuff, what happened? You know what's going to happen, and you're going to end up leaving this place that you love so much that's been helping you. And like, all these lies started coming in. And I just said, like, I blurted everything out. And I was in his office just crying, and I couldn't bring my head up. I was just so ashamed again. And I remember I'm like, well, I'm just going to look up and just see what happens. I know they're using the same script apparently, so I might as well just see what stupid thing he says.
Right.
I kid you not, I looked up and all I saw was that my counselor was crying for me. It was the first time that I saw someone weeping for me. Like, who am I? Like, why are you crying for me?
Right.
And all he did, and I know for a lot of people, this like might break some like counselor and coaching like ethics and stuff like that. But like, he came and sat beside me and he just hugged me. And for the next 45 minutes, we just sat there crying. Like, just crying. Like tears, snot, everything all over his shirt. And I'm just crying. And that's all he let me do, is just cry.
Yeah.
And I remember 45 minutes in. So now it's been like an hour and a half that we were sitting in his room. I just kind of broke the silence and I was like, this has got to have been one of the most awkward moments of my life, Doc. You know, like I just try to like make some silly joke and he's like, it's okay. You could keep crying if you want. And I was like, and I did. And after that moment, he said, Ken, there's a lot of things that you need to work through. And I know you're angry. And he's like, I just want to leave the space for you to work through this stuff. And if you want to, great. I'm here for you. And if not, like, I understand that too. You've been hurt, but my door's always open for you. And it was his empathy and trust that he gave me the space to do that I said, okay. And I started coming back and he started walking me through a whole process that I inevitably started using with a lot of men too, to this day. And new things that I've learned along the way.
Right.
So all that to say, man, I know a lot of people who have had bad counselors. I've also known a lot of good counselors, a lot of really good Christian counselors that they didn't have all the degrees. He didn't have all the degrees, right? Right. He was actually still pursuing his master's at the time, but his ministry of presence was more powerful than the PhD that destroyed my heart and I almost committed suicide.
Right.
And I'm not saying that he caused me to suicide. I was already thinking about that. I was already processing it. It was just kind of the thing that pushed me over. So anyways, I could go more into detail of the actual healing process, but that's kind of been that part of the journey of what's worked, what's not worked for me.
Right. So, oh, wow. Yeah. So disclosure, talk to this second counselor. So this is really the second person you've ever told. And that obviously went very well. Bravo, second counselor, dude. Where did you go from there now that you're getting this stuff out, finding healing? Yeah. Where did you go from there and try to navigate this?
Yeah, so he ended up walking me through a process, and I'll give everyone in here the highlights of it, because of time's sake. I'm not going to give like months of it, and part of the program that I teach also kind of walks through some of these things. But the first one was a ministry of just recognizing I needed acceptance from the Lord. So like that God accepts me for who I am. What I have found with most men who have been abuse survivors, there's two types of men out there. One who completely shut down and don't actually do anything. They become very apathetic. Right. And then the second one is I'm going to prove myself to everybody. You feel like you always have to prove your worth.
Right.
I became the second person. I was just like, I'm always going to try to like strive for something. So he taught me how to be accepted by God. The second thing he taught me was my identity in Christ, of like learning my worth. Who am I really when it comes to God? How does God see me? Because most men who are listening to this, right? If you've been an abuse survivor, when we hear about abuse, it's sometimes like this is a female thing. This is what happens to women, and we get it. They're victims, like it happens. But men, we got to be the tough. We got to be the strong guys. We got to be the ones who are the protectors. Well, who's going to protect the one who's already been violated?
Right.
So that's how I felt. So I needed to learn my identity in Christ. Then, and this is really important if you're listening to this, and I want to be careful on how I say this, I had to learn what forgiveness looked like. Forgiveness to the perpetrator and forgiveness towards the people that I actually committed sinful things to as well.
Right.
And I had to reconcile those things. Now, this is where I think a lot of counselors and Christian counselors may flip this, right? Is that they want to go, oh, you're angry and bitter. You need to do forgiveness right now. And it's like, he gave me the space. He knew, he waited that I had built certain foundations where I'm like, hey, we got to have this conversation.
Right. I actually did a whole podcast episode on forgiveness and what it does look like and what it doesn't look like, and how oftentimes it gets twisted, for sure. But yeah, and it's not instant, especially going through the experiences that we've been through. And it's also cyclical. The 70x7, yeah, you can't just do it once. It's like, it's very cyclical. And the logic behind that 70x7, you get it. It's like, yeah, because you got to keep going back. And more stuff bubbles up. And it's like, yeah, I guess I need to forgive him. But then also in my own story, more stuff gets uncovered in my past. And it's like, oh, crap, more stuff to be angry about, more stuff to forgive. And yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I want to go back. Being accepted by God, I've talked about that so many times. I call it, we have such a hard time loving ourselves because of the shame and the guilt and so forth. And I recommend to guys, learn to accept God's love for you. That is so key, learning to accept it, because if you can accept his love for you and realize you are worthy to receive his love, then it's that watershed moment you realize, oh, so I can actually like myself and love myself because God loves me, even knowing my past. If he can love me, I guess I can love me too. So yes, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. And you know, going back to the scriptures, I think about Romans 5:8, where he says, while yet we were still sinners, right? So he's doing this whole progression. If you look at that passage where he's like, rarely does anybody die for a good person or even a great person, but a sinner, right? Like that's like the worst of the worst. That's like for the abuser, right? Imagine being the abuser. He's saying, if you were the abuser, I died for you.
Right.
And if you're a victim, I died for you too. And that was the way that my counselor put it to me. I remember when he first did this, and I'm so grateful that we had 6 months of healing process.
Wow.
But he's like, Ken, do you realize that like your sin, what you've committed, deserves the wrath of God just as much as the abuser did? And in my mind, I was like, no, the abuser deserves way more than me. I was way better than him, right? But then I just said, like, you're right. We both deserve it. We both deserve it. We all deserve it. And I had to get to a place of forgiveness where I talk a lot about what is forgiveness, what does forgiveness look like, what does forgiveness not look like. And man, it took me 5 months to like get to a place where I feel like I was healing. This is going to be a little funny story, but when my counselor kind of gave me an exercise on how to forgive, he was like, just pray these types of prayers. I'm like, sounds great. I would not. I would be like, Heavenly Father, I just pray right now for this individual to just be walking down the street and they would get hit by a bus. And like, I was all about
their head. Yes.
And it was like, I was very like expressive. I was like, Lord, I don't want that person to die. I want them to suffer. They're paraplegic. Like just any kind of crazy story. Like, Father, I pray right now that they would just get shanked in the streets and like they'll lose their liver. Like just crazy things. Like I wanted them to suffer.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm telling my counselor these. He's like, that's not it. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's like in the Psalms, there's all these precatory prayers that were like imprecatory prayers where it's like, no, God, bring vengeance, bring this. And I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm being biblical. He's like, Ken, you need to pray for your heart to be healed and true forgiveness, where you're letting go of you being the judge and letting God be the judge of this person's life. And you trust that God is a good judge. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I took 4 months, 4 or 5 months. I don't remember the exact times now, length. But I remember this moment where I'm just praying for this individual and something switched in my prayer. And I remember praying, Lord, would you have mercy on this individual? They are in darkness. They do not see the light. They are enslaved and they are probably victims themselves. Father, would you come and show them the light? Be a good father to them. And like, I remember that coming out of my mouth and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was that? I was just shocked. And it was the first time I realized I've forgiven. My heart went from vengeance to mercy.
Right.
And it was just trusting the Lord that God will do what he does. Either there will be judgment on this individual when the day of the Lord comes, or this person will be saved. Right. I am not the one to make that decision. God is. Right.
And forgiveness, it's so healing for the person doing the forgiving that, it's so helpful. They say unforgiveness is like sipping poison in hopes that the other person will die, but you're taking the poison yourself and you're just killing yourself with that unforgiveness, that hatred, that vitriol against the people who have done you wrong. And it eats away at you. I mean, people say that's what causes cancer. That's what causes all these physiological illnesses, because of all of that hate, all that negativity that you do need to release. And it's very much a healing process to be able to forgive those who did you really, really wrong. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then I would say that the last thing with that, man, as we talk about forgiveness, and you already mentioned it, it's a cycle. It comes up, right? There's so many other parts to healing, right? But I would say that the biggest factor that I was shocked, that would have been immensely healing, was discovering my God-given purpose in life. And I think for most men, because they've been abused or because they've been addicted to pornography, right? Their life feels so worthless and they feel like they're not able to contribute anything. That when they feel like I can be used by God in beautiful and great things, it's amazing. Ephesians 2:10 talks about it. We are created for good works. We are his craftsmanship. And even if you think about Genesis 1, right? It talks about like he created us in his image and to do what? To like have stewardship and to build and to create. For men, what I have found, and this is probably, if anything, there's a massive gap, what I would say in the healing journey for a lot of people is that you get stuck in this cycle of like inner healing, for example, like, oh, I got to figure out what's the next wound and what's the next thing that's going on, which all that is really important. I do not want to discount any of that. But sometimes we got to stop looking at the past and start looking to the future.
Right.
Right. As what I have found is that as you start progressing towards the future, there's going to be bumps in the road that are going to remind you that there might be certain things of in the present that you need to work through, right? Some of your own flesh desires, things that you need to work through, or there might be some past issues. But where most, I think, well-intended counselors would try to do is that they'll try to just stay focused on the past.
Right.
And it's like, no, there's a point in time when there's enough healing that's happened. Let's get you back up and let's get you working and get you building and get you finding your God-given purpose.
Right.
And that's where most men need to shine. And that's where I would say a lot of healing will start to happen when they start doing that.
Right.
But you can't.
They say moving from victim to survivor to thriver.
Yeah.
And that you can really start to thrive and come into your own, especially like you say, after you get that foundation of healing. We've talked about the healing process before on the podcast. The scars will still be there. It's not like you will be miraculously healed as if this thing never happened to you. However, you can learn how to be that new man that God intended you to be, and stepping into that. I know my own healing. I'm like amazed at how much just in the last, literally 6 years of deep work. Now, I mean, I'm a coach. I have this podcast. I'm helping others. Just amazed at where God's brought me. And yeah, truly thriving. And so much healing is happening as I'm continuing to go out and thrive. I'm still continuing to be healing. So yeah, it's still a healing journey. That doesn't stop. But yeah, you don't have to stay stuck. Okay, I can't do anything until I'm 100% healed.
Yeah.
That's not how God works.
And it won't happen till Jesus comes.
That's right.
There's always going to be something.
Right.
And that's why I have found, though, like if there are guys here who feel stuck and they're like, man, I just feel stuck. Maybe it's time to level up and just like, I don't want to say pause your healing, but let's look at it at a different angle and say, what's your purpose, man? What are you trying to do? Who does God want you to help? Because here's what I do know. The enemy loves to steal, kill, and destroy. And that includes your destiny and your calling.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And the enemy knows that. The enemy sees the plans that God has for people. He has for us. And he's like, no, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Right.
We got to hold you down so you don't make a mess and make a holy mess out of everything. Yeah. Because that goes against his plan.
Yeah. And think about this. Like, I was actually thinking about this before this podcast in preparation for it. I was just praying and thinking about like, God, what is it that you would want me to share, if anything, out of all the things we were going to talk about? And I felt like it was this just simple truth that as we talk about the enemy's coming to steal, kill, and destroy, we know that God has created men to be the leaders, the heads. Society thrives when men are living in their God-given purpose and leadership. Right, when they are not doing that, society crumbles. So wouldn't it be smart for the enemy to say, you know what? Let's try to destroy men so badly that they're not even willing to step up to the plate. And how could we do that? Let's start to abuse them when they're little kids. Because that shame will stay with them forever and they won't ever want to bring that up.
Right.
And that's why I've made it as my ambition to be like, no, let's start the Shameless podcast. Let's get the story out there. Let's tell people like, no, God still has a purpose for you, even in the mess.
Absolutely. And talk about statistics that perpetrators, if they didn't have a preference for male versus female, they would choose male victims because boys don't tell. So knowing that boys are not going to talk about this. So yeah, and so many because males physiologically respond to touch. All that adds to the shame and guilt, and the perpetrators will use that as part of the grooming, trying to convince you that you are condoning this, that you're consenting to this because you're having responses. And that just adds to the guilt and shame. And like you said, I like the term icky. Something icky happened to you,
Yeah.
but you didn't have the language that was bad, that was abuse, just this icky thing happened. And it's a long time before men realize, wait, that thing that happened when I was a kid, that was abuse and it wasn't my fault. And yeah, that's just mind blowing. And yeah, I think it really does cause so many men to be stuck or to perpetrate or to get in the system through criminal activity and so forth. Talk to people who work in prisons. So many men have sexual abuse as part of their histories that cause them to go that route because of these horrible things that happen to them as children.
Yeah. And that's where like I am so compassionate to men who
Right.
like I see the landscape where people are always trying to put down men right now in our society. They trying to emasculate men. They're trying to either like this extreme of like be either really passive or toxic. And it's like, no,
Right.
we're all just trying to hide this shame of things that have either happened to us or that we're trying to prove to people. And
Right.
it's like, well, what if we showed them the gospel and how God truly can heal? Here's something that I would say is probably pretty controversial, or maybe not. We'll see what some of the people you say. I have found that for most people, when they have been hurt by the scriptures or like the church trying to put the scriptures down their throat, many times it's just platitudes and it's superficial. It's not that
Right.
people have dug deep into the word of God and know
Right.
how to minister appropriately.
Right.
That has been like literally the foundation of all my healing. Anytime I've tried other things, it has like not worked. But when I've gotten closer to God and the beauty and majesty of who he is and what he says he's going to do, like Philippians 1:6, that he who began a good work in you will finish it to the day of Christ Jesus. Man, I'm like, I could trust God, the sovereign God of the universe, to do that, right? That he's going to heal me, that he knows me. He's Zephaniah 3:17, that he dances over me and rejoices over me, that I am the apple of his eye, right? Like that I am a son of God, that I'm a co-heir, that I am trusted, I am worth, like all those things are the truths that I need to hear in order to keep moving through my healing purpose and journey and to find out how to walk within my calling.
Right.
Everything starts with identity. And I always want to instill that to people as they're listening. Like, you don't get that from self-help books. You don't get that from psychologists, right? As well-meaning as they may be, you get that from God and his truths. Now, you just need someone who's really good at it to be able to dissect it and hear your story and be able to help you process through all the trauma and the pain that you've gone through.
Right. Absolutely. Now, I know you're married, right?
Yes.
And how did the disclosure happen early on with your wife? And what is her view on all of this?
Yeah, great question. So she found out pretty early on. I mean, she knew that I had been abused somewhere in my dating, like we were dating for about a year. So she found out probably within 6 months. Before we got engaged, I kind of shared everything. So I was like, hey, before we get married, I just need you to know all these things. And that was actually extremely healing to share with her because she's like, she never knew the past Ken. She's only been seeing the healed Ken.
Right. Right.
So it was phenomenal for her to be like, man, you're saying all this stuff, but I don't even see any of those things.
Right.
Like, I remember telling her, man, I'm so afraid that I'm just going to manipulate you and I'm just going to use you. And she's like, Ken, you have never done that once. And we had we have such strong community that they'll like call me out on stuff if they did. And they're like, you are one of the most transparent, vulnerable, like integritous persons I know. And I was like, oh my gosh, I saw myself as still this person that has the ability to manipulate. And everybody around me was like, that's not even who we see you as. It was a very healing moment. So my wife has been tremendous in the healing process indirectly. Like, she didn't even realize it. And it's been fun.
Yeah. They do that. Yes, my wife will be 35 years this year. And yeah,
Congratulations, man.
just wonderful support and helped me. Most of my abuse got recovered memories after we got married. So she knew
Mm,
the few things I did remember before we got married, but it was after we got married where all these repressed memories came forward. And she definitely was a huge support with me during that
that's
time.
amazing.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to, you mentioned you are Hispanic. That's part of your culture. How have you been able to balance that? Telling your story, Hispanic culture tends to be very machismo and so forth, and you put on this strong face, but then you're coming very vulnerable, telling your story about what happened. How have you had any feedback, positive or negative, from especially Hispanic males that you've told this
Yeah.
story to?
So what's fascinating is that whenever I tell my story, all the guys in the room will always try to have the hardest stone face possible, like that doesn't affect
Hmm.
me,
Right.
especially Hispanics. And what I have come to learn is that it doesn't matter what culture you're in, when sin devastates your heart, like God will reveal it and it destroys everyone. So many times when I'm sharing my story, right, like if I'm at a church or something like that, I'm not
Hmm.
asking anyone to raise their hand. Like no one's going to
Right.
raise their hand about that,
Right. Of
right?
course not. Right.
And sometimes I've done it in co-gender spaces. You know, women are crying. They're like they're more in tune with their emotions. Guys are like,
Right.
I am not sharing anything.
Right.
But here's what I do know. They'll come to me in private, in
Hmm.
droves. They'll be like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute about this one thing you said that was like so random? But in my heart, I'm like, oh, I know what you want to talk about. I'm like, yeah, let's chat. My DMs, they get blown up all the time. Like when I did it
Right.
with Drew's podcast or different things, that people just started messaging me like, this is the first time I get to share my story. I haven't shared my story.
Well,
And I've had guys just weeping time and time again. So no matter what happens, I have found even in Hispanic cultures, like I know they're not going to do anything there. And they're not, some of them might be like, bro, that's cool. Like, that's crazy that you've done that. And you're like, you're sharing your story. But man, give it 10 minutes. And when they catch me alone, they're crying and they're like, can I please get
right.
a hug? And I'm like, absolutely.
Wow.
You know, like,
Wonderful.
and that's the power of stories.
Exactly. Power of story. Absolutely. Because, and the fact that you're willing to do that, they can then see yourself in your story much more so than they could in my story. And that's the power that they can see so much of themselves in you and find that healing. And so I'm so thankful that you are sharing this in so many different platforms and helping men of all different backgrounds realize that there is healing out there. So what are you doing now? I know you are a coach, entrepreneur, your own podcast, and I'll throw links in the show notes for all that. So, what can you tell me? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I have the Shameless podcast, which is helping men overcome, like the way I like to say it, kill shame, stand strong, and be on mission. That's the thing that I'm focused on. It's my passion project. I also have a community for individuals who want to go walk through my program, and you could go through that on scriptures.blog. That's like where the Shameless podcast is housed. So I love to do that. I love to just try to help men as much as possible and as best as possible. There are times people come to me and I'm like, bro, that is way over the depth of my expertise. But man, I could be a shoulder to cry on. I could help you in any way possible to be a good friend. And because I've seen both good and bad, I am like, I filtered through people pretty strong. And like, if I
Right,
recommend someone, I'm like, hey, I trust this guy. Like, they're going to do good. Right.
right.
So I do that. And then for like my full-time job, if you want to call it that,
Hmm.
it's solo scaled, where I'm helping a lot of coaches, consultants, solopreneurs really help them scale their business without like with automation and just trying to figure out like, how do I grow an audience in this day and age? How do I actually help the people I want to help with?
Hmm.
Because deep down inside, my heart is that like, I just want to help people. And here's what I have learned. Because I have that little fighting spirit in myself that I wanted to prove something,
Right.
that wasn't all necessarily bad. It was God actually showing me that, like, no, Ken, you love to find a problem and tackle it head on and find solutions.
Hmm.
So what I did was like, well, what if I helped people out there grow their businesses, like truly mission minded people that I want to help? And I share all that because I want people to know this. Okay. We talked a lot about my past and like the pain.
Right.
Man, I have so much joy in my life right now.
Hmm.
Like God is so good to me. I've been married for over 13 years. I have 4 amazing little kids who love me, who their lives have been so precious, right? I have this thing where I could be my passion project, Shameless Podcast, where I get to help people. And then the Solo Scaled, where I'm like helping mission-minded individuals really just grow in their walk with God. And ultimately, like their business, they're like, I love that. I love that. I'm seeing that impact. So that's what I'm doing. And would you have told me 20 years ago that I'd been doing that? No.
Right.
But because I started to walk in my purpose and I started to live out my calling, I started asking myself, God, how do you want me to help? And it's like, you know how to help people scale and grow, both personally and practically. I want you to start doing that. And that's what I'm doing today.
Excellent. Excellent. So, any final thoughts for that listener out there who is a survivor?
For those of you who are survivors, there's a few challenges that you will always face throughout your life. One of them is going to be that feeling of loneliness. I cannot tell you how many times I go through life sometimes just feeling like lonely. And I tell my wife, I'm like, I don't know why, but today I just feel really lonely. And I know that that's just one of the ways the enemy loves to mess with me. So I have to go back to reminding myself about God's presence and how God is always with me. So if you're listening to this right now, I know, and Mike knows this too, how devastatingly lonely you can feel. And you're trying all the right things. You're trying to even reach out to us. And we may not even get your signals, right? You may send a message and you will be like, that was awesome. But what you're really trying to say is, please help. I get it. I know it. And I'm asking you to reach out. Like, it's okay to reach out. There might not be people in your church. I pray first and foremost that you could find someone in your church. But if there's not, like, reach out. Reach out to people who have been through it. Hopefully my story can inspire you to just say, hey, Ken knows what it's like. Reach out to me. I'd be glad to just be a listening ear. And if I can help, great. If I can't, man, there's other people who can help. Let's get you to a place where you can find healing and hope.
Yes, absolutely. Hope and healing are out there. You just have to look for it. Sometimes it takes a little bit, even like Ken, you mentioned that you went for one counselor really, really bad, but then that second counselor was beautiful, absolutely wonderful. And yeah, there is help and hope out there for sure. And thank you for being on our podcast. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. If you would like to learn more about my coaching with Polar Live Consulting, where I provide one-on-one coaching and group coaching, both with a focus on healing for male survivors, reach out to me at polarliveconsulting.com. That is Polar spelled Polar. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your story. If you would like your story featured on this podcast, contact me via my website. If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find me, and I really want to spread this message of healing and hope to others. And remember, you are not alone. Healing is possible, and the abuse was not your fault. Let me repeat that. The abuse was not your fault. See you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.